side of your folder, and you can pull those out. We're going to walk through them step by step, because it can be a little challenging. Now, let me say something real quick about Scott. This is Scott Burry. Again, long-time resident here. Been in the industry for quite a while, over 25 years or so. Very knowledgeable about the loan industry and loan products and mortgages. So you're in good hands. On a personal note, Scott was my neighbor for about 8 years when we lived on the same block. His home was right next to one of my friends' homes, who I was renting for a few years, and he was my neighbor. Now, we're about community here. So, again, you can see, me and Scott probably grew up with very different experiences and whatnot, but let me tell you something personally. I'm not a religious person, but I like information that makes sense to me. And the Bible talks a lot about your neighbors, right? They say a lot of good stuff about your neighbors. And Scott, let me tell you a story. I got plenty of them. I'm not going to put them on Front Street. But Scott, one day I was putting an engine in one of my cars. And a guy was taking the whole engine out for me, and I was putting another one in. I bought a new engine. And in my clumsiness, in the driveway, I spilled a ton of oil. It was just like massive, running all down. And I never forget, Scott, he might not even remember. Scott walked out of the house and looked and just saw oil everywhere. And without hesitation, he was just like, we better clean this up. And so it wasn't even his business. I mean, of course, I was just scrounging to do it. He went and got, I don't know if there was some litter, some sand or something, and he just stopped the flow and then, I guess, started sweeping the stuff up and cleaning it up. And, I mean, without hesitation, a big old oil spill right in the driveway. And this guy, without hesitation, just kind of came out and just kind of helped me clean all that up. Now, I got some really close friends that probably would have just ran away when they seen that big old oil spill come out, right? But this is a great guy. I vouch for him on a professional tip and on a personal tip. He's a really good guy. This is the type of neighbor you want to have, because he'll have your back. He cares about people. He volunteers with us quite often here. He's recently got into doing this work with us. So I'm very excited to introduce you guys to Scott Burry.
Thank you very much. So that's Burry, like, don't be in a hurry. So if you guys could all take out your packets, they'll be in a paper clip like this, and if you don't have it, just let us know or buddy up with somebody who has it. I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly, and if you can hold your questions until the end, unless they're exceptionally relevant and right on point. By the way, good morning, and thanks for showing up.
Thank you for showing up.
So, if you look behind us here, there's a bag with a Kleenex box on the top. That's about the thickness of the packet of documents that you're going to have when you complete a transaction. This little bitty bit I'm going to show you today, tiny little bit, real tiny little bit. So the first document is the disclosures regarding agency relationships. Prior to 1984, Easton versus Strasburg, who was representing the buyer? Take a guess. Anybody, just in a transaction, who was representing the buyer?
The buyer.
The buyer was representing the buyer. Okay, that's a good guess. The answer is nobody. Nobody was representing the buyer. They thought they were being represented, but everybody was working for the seller. All agents and all brokers were really working for the seller. Then there was a big lawsuit, and it comes that now we have a choice. And this choice is explained to you in this document, right here. This is the explanation. Terrible explanation, legalese. Let's just take a look. If you're going to be the seller's agent, you owe fiduciary duty to the seller. This is under the seller's agent. Utmost care. If you're going to be the buyer's agent, it sounds like the same thing. Duty, utmost care, integrity, loyal, honesty, fair dealing. And those agents who are strong enough and courageous enough to represent both. This document just tells us the choices that are available. You are not making a decision about which choice you're going to make. Let me just say this. I'm your agent. I have the buyer pulling my arm this way. I have the seller pulling my arm this way. Each of them is telling me what they want. Am I going to be able to operate really well like this as a dual agent? Not very likely. If you're strong enough, if the agent and the broker is strong enough, they're not pulling me. I'm guiding them. But not every agent can do that. So my recommendation for you as buyers is to have the agent representing you and only you. That's my recommendation. And I would recommend that you take a look at these small little fine print stuff at your time limits. When you're ready to go tonight, check it out. By the way, fiduciary duty means utmost care, no mistakes. Okay, that's the basic thing. Now, the next document is called the purchase contract and joint escrow instructions. This document does three things. It sets forth the terms and conditions under which you are offering to buy the property. It also does the confirmation of the agency choice that you're going to make. And it is partially the escrow instructions in which the escrow company does their thing by these instructions. They don't look like instructions, but they are in here. So it sets forth the terms and conditions of the purchase. You make a confirmation of the agency, and it's an escrow instructions. I'll get into that in a minute. Now let's take a look at number one. Number one, this talks about who is these people, who's buying, who's selling, what's the purchase price. Number two, all the way down from the top down to the bottom, talks about the financing. What's the purchase price? What's the down payment? What are the points? What money has to come in slightly before the close of escrow, and the total purchase price. Talks about agencies and loan contingency removal, appraisals, and if there's any cash to the seller. Number three talks about the closing. What are we going to, is this an owner-occupied property? Are you going to move into it? Is it kind of important if it's rented out that it be delivered vacant? Is it important to you if you're going to move in? What do you think? So is that kind of a condition or a contingency that you'd like to have your agent put in there? We want Tommy the tenant and the bedroll gang out of there when it's my turn to buy the place. That's kind of important. So if you're working for the buyer and the seller, that might not be as easy as it sounds. Okay? And all of these things in here, every single thing in here. Let's go to this page number 2 of 8, if you have that. This talks about number 4, A, B, and C. We're talking about inspections. When do you want to have, what kind of inspections? Roof inspection, termite inspection, property inspection. Who pays for it? How long do you have to approve of these inspections? This little piece of paper here has lots of little mouse traps, time-sensitive mouse traps. Spring and snap automatically. So it's important that you take a look at these provisions and talk about them with your agent and make sure that you have these things lined up and ready to go. Otherwise, they're going to bite you where you sit. And you might get kicked out of the contract or be forced into one because you weren't paying attention and getting it done quickly. So it's like that. It's time. Once you enter into a contract, it's very quick, very quick, very quick. And it's up to you. Call your agent. Hey, get going. What about this? Call them twice a day. See what happens. Okay, and then there's disclosures, number 5. There must be 25 different disclosures. You can't read them all, but you're going to receive them and you're going to sign documents that says you read them all. The important ones are the title, does it have lead-based paint in it? And other disclosures such as the condition of the property. Has it been a leaky roof? Has there been any problems with the plumbing or the electrical? All disclosures you will receive, and you have to look at them. Fortunately, the way it's set up now, you get your disclosures, you're supposed to get them before you make the offer. The selling agent has a property disclosure packet, which they just give to everybody by email. And you go over that stuff with your agent. All right. Now let's see. Let's move on to my favorite. Let's go to page number 5 of 8. Remember what we're looking at here. We're looking at the purchase agreement. This is your offer to the seller about what you're going to do. Number 16, liquidated damages. I have to say that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you any legal advice. But liquidated damages is a provision which says if the buyer has defaulted in the transaction somehow, that the extent or limitation of their damages is the amount of money that they put into escrow thus far. So you can't be sued and have, $80 million in damages facing you if you don't go through. How can this happen? How can it happen? You're ready to go through. And then someone passes away in the family and leaves you their house, and you say, well, that's for me. I'm not going to have this deal here. I'm going over there. And you say, by the way, I want out of this transaction. That's not a valid excuse. And so the seller may say, well, look, I was going to use all the money here to buy this, and now I miss out on that profit, and I'm going to sue you. If both parties, and I stress both parties, buyer and seller, have signed the liquidated damages provision, then the extent of your damages liability is limited to 3% for what you have inside there. They don't automatically get it, but that's the extent of your damages, financial damages. The next one, dispute resolution. We don't like to talk about lawyers, they're terrible, but we need them sometimes. So if both parties initial here, both parties, buyer and seller, these provisions apply. What does that say? Mediation says if there's a dispute, we're going to go to mediation first. We don't drag out the lawyers. If that doesn't work, then we go to arbitration. We try to get it done that way before we drag out the lawyers. That's the way we like it. That's the way we roll here. And by the way, let's go to the next page, which would be 7 of 8. 7 of 8. Provision 27, A, B, and C. Remember the first document we looked at, which was the agency disclosure, talked about what you were going to have as your agent. Is going to represent you, the seller, or both. On 27C, this is where you make your choice. Right here. So you would 27A talks about disclosure. 27C, you could check a little box. Oh, I'm representing the seller, or I'm representing the buyer. You will be represented by the selling agent, whoever that might be. I don't know if it's me, or my wife. But it could be anybody. Maybe you have a brother-in-law in the business. So you check that box. Now number 28. Let's take a look at what that says. What does it say here? 28. Anybody, just holler right out. Joint escrow instructions. When I first started, we used to call up the escrow company and say, hey, this is what I want you to do. Or we type out a letter and say, this is what we want you to do. I still do that, but that's an addition to this. Every escrow and title company transaction will ask the agents for a copy of this. That's what they follow. All right. And then the back page talks about, has everybody signed? By the way, just because you put in an offer, the seller has no obligation to even respond. So your offer would try to be something like this. I'm gonna give you this offer, and it's good for 24 hours, 48 hours, at which time you have to respond. Respond with an acceptance, a rejection, or a counteroffer. Why isn't it a good idea to have this offer open-ended? You just keep this offer, Mr. Seller, for as long as you like. Think about it. Let me know what you think. I'll be back next week. Is there any reason why that would be not a very good plan?
There's no pressure on
All right, I'm going to be the seller. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got this offer on this house here for my house. Anybody want to beat it? You don't want to have your offer used as a tool against you. So the best way I like to do it is I have it expire upon presentation. You've got the offer, here it is. You like it or you don't. But some sellers are not so sophisticated. So you may want to let your offer stand for 28 or 48 hours. And I like to be there when I'm presenting the offer. If I can meet with the seller and their agent, I like to present my own offer. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. Okay, the next document is the Buyer's Inspection Advisory. That may be attached to the purchase agreement, or it may be the separate document. This document tells you, don't buy the house unseen. Go there, make inspections, check everything out, call up your Uncle Fred, anybody you can get to make inspections of the property. Inspect the property, see what you're getting. Does anybody have someone in the business that you're related to? Or is a friend who does this kind of work? Okay, so nobody does. But if you know somebody, you would call them, say, hey, come on over, tell me what you think. Check it out. Now, this also talks about rights and duties of the parties. Your duty is to make sure that you check it out. Your agent's going to check it out too. But also the seller has a duty to tell you what they know about the property. Is there somebody beating on a drum every day at 5 o'clock in the backyard? What's that 55-gallon drum over there with skull and crossbones on that green stuff leaking out to the back of the backyard? What is that? You have to know about those things. So it's your obligation to ask, look, and it's the seller's obligation to say something. They have to say something. They have to say something in writing. What about the square footage? Don't be caught arguing about 10 square feet difference. It's a general indication. You get 3 people measuring square foot, they're all going to come out with something different. It's got to be close. Don't worry too much about that. And on every one of these forms on the bottom, there's a place for both the buyer and the seller to initial. Make sure you initial this as having read it. Okay? Let's take a look at the back and see if there's anything exciting about here. What else are they asking you to do about? Anybody? Read on the back. Anything at all. Earthquakes. Well, are we in an earthquake zone? What do you think? Well, we probably are, right? Well, we don't expect you to get up on the roof. So who are you going to send? The roof inspector or Uncle Fred. Have somebody get up there that you know. Give you a report on the roof. Ask the seller, well, when's the last time you had the roof done? What did you have done? When was it? What's the company? You have a copy of the contract. Check these things out. Check it out. Before you go and make an offer, look through these documents and see what's coming. Okay? Let's go on to the next one, please. And what I call the GFE, or the good faith estimate. The next 3 documents have to do with financing costs. The GFE is a good faith estimate of your closing costs. So you go to ABC Loan Company. You say, Mr. Loan Company, what is this going to cost me? How much? How much is it going to cost? All of these fees are going to be listed on this document here. And this is a good faith, last word is estimate. Where do you live, Scott? Oh, I live in United States, California. Oh, okay. And then the next document, don't go there yet, would be the truth in lending. Well, I want to know some more. You live in the United States, California. Oh, I also live in San Francisco. Oh, where else? In the Bayview District. And then when you get down to the settlement statement, which is the final disclosure, then they get a little more precise. Where do you live, Scott? I live in the United States, California, San Francisco, the Bayview District at 1514 Van Dyke, San Francisco, California, 944. It's very precise. So each one of these estimates is just an estimate. Now this first GFE, this is used to compare other lenders. Maybe you have gone to various lenders and see which one is going to give you the best deal. If you take this form that they gave you, which they have to give you 3 days after you apply, you can use it to compare the loans quickly and see what's going on. What are some of the things in here? Let's just take a look. What can be in here? Let's go to page 2. Right above where it says, or just to the right of where it says A, your adjusted origination charges. What are origination charges? Just holler it right out if you have a good guess. Any old thing.
Salesman's fees. Salesman's fees.
Well, I like that, salesman's fees. And boy, there are a lot of them too. Everybody's got their finger in the pie and they all want a piece of the action. So, you have salesman's fees, you have title insurance, recording fees, the upside down fee, the hat is on crooked fee. All those fees are going to be listed here. Okay? And on the last page, right down on the bottom here, this is going to be where you're going to do most of your comparison. Maybe some of you will not even bother to go to more than one lender. If you're not going to go with more than one lender, this is just a general indication of what you're going to be paying. Okay, can we move on to the next one, please? This is what I call the Regulation C, or Truth in Lending Disclosure Statement. One-page document. This is getting a little closer to what you're really going to pay. Right now, it might be a good time to talk about what is the difference between a nominal rate and the annual percentage rate. You go to the bank, so Mr. Banker, I want to borrow $100,000. What are you going to charge me? And the banker says, I'm charging you 6%. Okay. You say you want 6% here. But when you get to the closing, it says 6.75. Why is there a difference? Why is the nominal rate different than the annual percentage rate? And the reason is because they tack on a bunch of fees. You might have escrow, you might have impounds, you might have appraisal fees. All those fees are tacked on and amortized over the life of the loan. And so they bump it up a little bit. So don't be surprised if the fees are the interest rate is a little bit higher, 0.125% higher than what you've been quoted. But on the promissory note, which we'll see in a minute, it's actually going to be what you've been promised. And if it's not, put the brakes on. Alright? Let's go to the last thing. Now you've done all your homework, the buyer and the settlement statement, HUD 1. The buyer and the seller have signed all the documents, the loan is in place, the termite report is done, the housing inspector is finished, you've kicked out the tenants, you've made your final walkthrough inspection, you're ready to sit down and look at this settlement statement. This settlement statement tells you exactly what you're going to pay in fees, in closing costs, and expenses. Some of you are going to not have enough money that you're going to be required to have something called impound accounts for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Some of you have enough money to put the money down. You don't have to have those impound accounts. You pay your own principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. But many people have those things added to the loan docs. So it brings it up a little bit. A little higher, a little higher. Okay, now, on these documents, you'll see that they have a buyer side and a seller side. Which side will you see? You'll see the borrower side or the buyer side. You won't see what the seller's paying. If your agent is representing both buyer and seller, he or she will see both sides. But you are only going to get to see one side. All right. This is a kind of important statement on the second page here. Top part talks about broker fees. Next part down is the lender fees. And next part down is the title charges. Why are you paying title fees? What sort of title insurance are you buying as the buyers? I'm going to give you the answer since I don't see it. When you buy a piece of property, you want to make sure that, let me back up just a minute. Let me back up a little bit. Let's go back 200 years and we're going to make a transaction. There's Mr. Seller over there. He's holding a shotgun. And I say, I'd like to buy your property. Here's a bag of gold. And he reach over and he grab a clump of dirt, hand it to me. I hand him the bag of gold. He He'd hand me the shotgun, he'd say, "Hey Martha, we're out of here," and he'd leave. And I would be there, and I'd say, "This is my place now." I'd put up my picket fence, I have my shotgun, I'd be protecting my property. Well, we don't do it like that anymore, because it's a big problem, it's a lot of people. So now we have title insurance. And what that does is that they investigate the title, the chain of title. Who owned this place from the King of Spain forward, all the way back to today? Who owned it? And making sure that the seller is really the seller. And that there aren't any liens or encumbrances that we don't know about. And who else are you buying title insurance for? The lender. The lender wants to also be protected. So you're going to buy two policies of title insurance, one for you and one for the lender. Tough luck. You have to do it, otherwise they won't loan the money. So there's the American Land Title Association and the California Land Title Association. You buy the ALTA policy and you buy the CLTA policy for the lender. Can you also get that extra added protection if you want unreported? What's unreported? There's a gambling debt, IRS, there's encroachment from the neighbor here. You get that extra added protection if you want. And the answer is yes. You can buy a higher cost policy if you want. It'll all be stated right here in the settlement costs. Okay, now the next two documents go hand in hand. But we're going to go with the grantee first. What is a grantee? A grantee is a document by the seller which takes the place of the clump of dirt. It's the indication that the seller is giving up all legal rights to the property. Everything he owns, and not anything else, is going to you. This document is recorded and sent back to you as your proof that you are the owner, not just this clump of dirt and the shotgun. Now you have a piece of paper. Where's a good place to keep this? Under the mattress? Might be, but I'd make a couple of copies. And I'd put one in the safe deposit box and one in my folder that I have representing the purchase of this property. And maybe one in the file cabinet. Okay? So this is the seller giving legal ownership of the property to you. But there's another party involved, and that's with the promissory note and the deed of trust. Let's look at these two documents together. The promissory note is your promise to the lender that you will repay the loan under the terms and conditions offered inside here. And if you don't repay it, the deed of trust is the enforcement mechanism. You don't pay, I'm going to enforce that promise to pay with what's inside here. So let's take a look at these terms and conditions on the promissory note. And by the way, they're all going to look similar, but they're all going to be a little different. The promissory note is not recorded. It's just a document between you and the lender, whoever that might be. On number 2A, this is the due on sale clause. If you decide to sell the property to anybody else, the lender can say, hey, I want to get paid. If you have a due on sale clause, it's not an assumable loan. Why would anybody want an assumable loan? Well, suppose you want to sell. Maybe the market's going up and you want to sell it to somebody else and have them assume this old loan. It's easier that way, but it's not going to happen today. Not very often, unless it's private financing. Now, sometimes a lender is not going to be able to enforce that due on sale clause if you sell it to your mother, or your sister, or your wife, or your brother, or that special person in your life. And that's just the way it is. Okay, prepayment, number 4. Can you prepay the loan? If you get a 30-year fixed rate loan, hey, if you win the lottery, can I pay it off today? What does it say here? You have to make sure that you can or cannot prepay it. You want to have the ability to prepay the loan should you get a windfall, and you want to prepay it without suffering a big penalty. Okay. Let's go to second page. right in the middle, under F, remedies. This talks about the remedies that the lender has. If you default, what can the lender